Hello, and welcome to the Scary Mommy Book Club's first virtual book talk. You know the saying, go big or go home? Well, tonight we are going big. Our first book is none other than Becoming, written and adapted for young readers by author and former First Lady Michelle Obama. Tonight we have assembled a group of young people, their parents, and Mrs. Obama herself to discuss the book and how it can lead us to be better connected with our own stories. And as Mrs. Obama says, to widen the pathway for who belongs and why. And with that, I have the great honor of introducing the author of Becoming, former First Lady, Mrs. Michelle Obama.
I am so excited to be here. Can't wait for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it all week.
Did you know early in the writing process that this book would be something relatable to both adults and young people?
When you put your life story in a book and put it out there for the world to read, you never know who it's going to resonate with. But my hope was that, yes, that it would resonate with adults and young people alike. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, even when I started talking to the publishers about the book, I didn't want to just do a book about the years in the White House, a sort of traditional First Lady story, because the truth is that that's not where my story began. My story began in my childhood years, growing up on the South Side of Chicago, doing what most young people do, having those scraps and learning those lessons. And I had hoped that young people could see themselves in my journey. So I was very excited when it was time to put together the young readers version of this book. And we were always taught that you talk up to and not down to kids, that, you know, they will rise to the level that you put before them. And that was, you know, that is reflected in this book still being very meaty, but hopefully being just as accessible for young readers. So I'm so excited to hear what they have to say.
Well, we have a group of young readers and their parents with us here today from the Scary Mommy community. But before they join us, let's together enjoy a quick minute of joy, AKA some freaking out, as we watch the reactions of these young people when they heard that they had been chosen to meet you tonight.
Oh.
You are going to meet Michelle Obama.
For real?
Really? That's amazing.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Scary Mommy Book Club, Dylan and her father, Dave, Myasia, Amira and her mom, Denisha, Isabella and her mom, Melissa, and my two daughters, Macy and Giselle.
Hey, everybody. I'm as excited to be here as you all are. So I can't wait. It's good to see you guys. You look great.
All right. So let's get into Becoming. So, Mrs. Obama, in the book, one reoccurring theme is your constant striving to achieve, especially as you grew up. We have a photo here from the book of you in kindergarten, and you can spot little Michelle Obama in the third row, second from the right. And so, you know, whether it be your determination in a kindergarten spelling quiz or moving to a top performing high school, there was this constant question of whether you felt good enough. And so, Dave, I want to ask you, raising girls today is harder than ever. Do you ever struggle with encouraging your daughter, Dylan, to not compare herself to standards of beauty or success or other pressures to feel good enough?
Yeah, totally. Social media makes it harder than ever. And, you know, we talk about that a lot. And, you know, I tell her all the time how beautiful she is, but I also say that that's not sort of the measure of your worth. You know, she's smart and funny and kind and strong. And, you know, my whole thing is that the only thing you can control really is your effort. And as long as you are really, truly doing your best, then to me, that's success.
Dylan, does this raise any questions for you?
So, Mrs. Obama, do you think that generally women believe they have to hold themselves to a higher standard or feel that they have to prove themselves more than men? And if so, what advice would you have to young girls who are dealing with this?
Great question. And let me just start by saying, listen to your dad, right? Because It's amazing that, kids hear some of the same messages differently when they don't come from their parents. And I am no different. I can say things endlessly to my daughters, but they hear it from a mentor or somebody a little bit younger they're closer to. But your dad is absolutely right. And you're very lucky to have a man in your life who is telling you at an early age that you are valued. And so, yes, it is harder. I think for women, it's harder for anyone who isn't in the traditional majority, right? Because society holds out a standard of what it means to be successful or powerful or what's good enough. Oftentimes it's male, and sometimes it's white, and sometimes it's wealthy, right? A very narrow definition, but that's not the truth of it. And until we start sharing our stories and putting our truths out there so that everyone sees a broader sense of what is good enough and what is power and what is beauty, that's why I wanted to write this book. That's why I'm encouraging young people like you to tell your stories and use your voice, because we need to add to the broader spectrum of what it means to be human, let alone what it means to be good enough. So I want young people to start practicing positive messages, to choose to take in the positive energy that is around you every day. And for those of you who are not blessed to have that positive energy in your life on a regular basis, to find the light that is around you, because there's always someone in your life who is showing you the possibilities of life and not trying to drain from you, if that makes sense. So listen to your dad. I know that is hard to take in, but guess what? He knows something.
Do the other moms here on the call sometimes feel that way when, you're saying something that it doesn't resonate as much as when, they might be hearing it from a friend or from social media?
I tell them at home, you got to give it to them at home so they don't look for it outside.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's also the importance of having a community around you that helps you raise your kids, right? I say this all the time. We weren't meant to parent in isolation, because kids need different things from different people. And your mom, your dad, the people in your household can't be your everything. Kids hear different things from different people. And let me tell you, the one reason my girls have sanity is not because they're listening to me. I know that I can't be the sole messenger in their life. So we have to, build those communities that, will help bring other voices into the lives of our children.
So I want to talk now a little bit about the theme of failure, because this was something that really stood out to me and my girls as we were reading. And a quote that stuck out was, "Failure is a feeling long before it becomes an actual result. It's vulnerability that breeds with self-doubt and then is escalated, often deliberately, by fear." And you also wrote about failing the bar exam. Talk about some drama. Okay. So for those who are not yet through the whole book, when you read the first 6 or 7 chapters, you will learn that Mrs. O does not fail at much of anything as a young woman growing up. But the bar exam was a major shock for you. But you were able to kind of see the silver lining there, right? When you had that experience. And so, Denisha, I want to ask you as a mom, do you think it's hard to sometimes let our kids fail, even though that failure may be a teachable moment?
Well, I try to remind them that it happens. So I'm actually in the mindset of a quote that I believe Oprah said, who Mrs. Obama you mentioned as your friend. You have not failed if you've enjoyed the process. So I try to encourage them to find a takeaway from the experience so they can benefit from it. And then I get into my mommy voice and I say, you're okay, shake it off, get back in there, because you won't get to the win if you don't stop trying.
Myasia and Amira, what questions did these stories about failure in the book raise for you?
Okay, Mrs. Obama, my question to you is, how did you protect yourself from the scrutiny on the days when you didn't feel so strong?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. The protection that the protection and the resilience that you develop is a muscle that you have to practice, right? So that you have it ready for you on the days that you need it. So it's not a tool or a gimmick, right? You get through stuff because you've had to get through stuff and you've seen that you're capable of getting through it, so that when something bad happens to you, you can stop and go, okay, I know how to deal with this pain. I know I've experienced this disappointment before and I got through, right? You have memories and stories and experiences that you can draw from and say, well, if I got through that, then I can certainly handle this thing coming up. But that is something you develop over time, and it's something that you have to practice. And the only way you practice resilience is that you try some hard stuff, that you push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And by doing that, that means that sometimes you are going to fail. Sometimes you aren't going to get it right. Sometimes you will disappoint yourself and maybe somebody else. But guess what you learn? That little scar, just like anything like a scar, that disappointment and that pain, it heals over time. And before you know it, it's just a little mark. It may have meant more to you than it does to anybody else. And I want young kids to learn that early. Getting to the question of us as parents, the hardest thing in the world to do is to watch that baby you love hit their head up against a wall that you see coming. And I'm just connecting with all the parents, because it is hard to watch the babies that you love hurt or feel disappointment. It is hard to watch, because you want your kids to always be happy, to always experience joy. But we have to remind ourselves that if we're protecting them from that and we're helicoptering them through life so that they never feel it, they come out on the other end as adults and they're not ready for anything. So our job is to build you all up so that you're ready for it when the time comes. You will not be in our nest forever, and it would be a sad thing if you were. So now is the time for us as parents to practice our own bravery, right? And to let our kids try some stuff, and to turn the other way and just kind of go, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Right. Isn't it comforting to hear the most successful folks that we may idolize have had failures, but those failures actually make up their story about who they are? That's worth reminding ourselves as young people and as parents. Tell us in the comments if you're a mom watching about a time you had to watch your own kid fail. So let's switch gears a little now and talk about teachers. Melissa, Isabella's mom, is a teacher, right? Does this quote from the book resonate with you? Kids know at a very young age when they are not valued, when adults aren't invested enough to help them learn.
Yes, it absolutely does. And that plays a huge role in the outcome of their learning experiences in any environment, even virtual. They need to feel seen, supported, both at home and in school, in order for themselves to remain invested in their education.
Isabella, what question does this bring up for you?
So, Mrs. Obama, my question to you would be, do you believe that a teacher is more effective when they are warm, stern, or a combination of both?
Oh, that's a very good question. Look, being a teacher, now that I'm an adult and I've lived in the world and I have my own kids, I think teachers are underpaid. I think the work that they do is at the backbone of our society. It is unfortunately sometimes thankless, but it is absolutely essential that we have well-paid, excellent, trained teachers working on the development of the youngest members of our society. So I commend your mom for the work that she does. And it's a hard job, because the truth is that, to answer your question, I think a teacher has to be a little bit of everything, because the truth is that, not all kids are different. It is an impossible task that we ask teachers to do. So teachers are required to be able to be flexible, to be able to meet each student where they are, and to hold with them the basic thing that your mom said, which is, whether you're stern or nice, if a kid knows that you genuinely care about them, right? If you are invested in them and that they trust that investment, that in the end, they can take you either way. They can handle you stern and they can handle you nice, because in the end, what it is that they trust you.
Pay all the teachers,
Yes.
as much as possible, because I got a little teeny taste of grade 7 algebra over this pandemic. And let me tell you, Lord, please, I never want to do it again. What I love about this quote is that it just speaks to the fact that kids are smart. No matter how young they are, they know innately when someone's just going through the motions, right? Whether their teacher is invested and caring and really motivated. Gigi, I think you had a really great example of one of your teachers who did something special for your class this year.
Well, just a couple weeks ago, my science teacher brought in his telescope from home for the one day, one class, 1 hour that Saturn was visible during the day. So he let every single student have a turn to look into his telescope and see Saturn. And he did a bunch of research on his own to find when it was visible and what angle he had to put the telescope at and everything. And this really showed that he cared and he really wanted us to learn about Saturn in a fun way.
I mean, the man brought the telescope from home. I don't know how this teacher got the telescope to school, whether it was an Uber or whether it was a subway, but that in and of itself, thank you, because you're going the extra mile, right? If you're watching live and there's a special teacher in your child's life, tell us their name in the comments. Okay, so Mrs. Obama, I must ask a question now.
Yes.
On behalf of the moms who are exhausted after a year of work and schooling from home, you did mention in the book that your dear friend and messy roommate, Suzanne, prepared you for eventually living with President Barack Obama, who maybe is not as orderly as you describe yourself as. So in thinking about, young people, I'm not looking at my 2 daughters, but I am looking at my 2 daughters who are here tonight and possibly some others in this group who are not known for fastidious order. I love that phrase. I'm going to start using that more often. Fastidious order, please. Mrs. Obama, my question is, please tell us why we shouldn't give up on people who can't put away their clothes.
Oh, you are funny. Because everybody has their own journey, right? And not everybody sees the light at the same time or ever. And sometimes we have to let people find their own pathway. I'll use my oldest daughter as an example, who wasn't really the neatest person in the world or didn't really seem to care. I didn't know whether she was paying attention until she went away to college, right? And lived with a bunch of other roommates who were much messier than she was. And she realized in her own time that it was nicer to live in cleanliness. And so the only one who was going to clean was her. So she learned to mop and dust and make her bed when the time came. Not that she did it, all the time. I'm sure if I had had an opportunity to go to that dorm room, I would have been aghast. But it took her until college to understand that she learns better, feels better, wants it for herself. And so that's, like we said, sometimes we have to let our kids bump their heads. And I will say this about President Obama is that now he is much neater than he was when we first got married. So you can teach an old dog new tricks.
That is encouraging. I mean, the good news is that you can teach an old dog new tricks, but the bad news is you're saying maybe we have to wait until college to ever see the bed get made. Yikes. Dylan, who's neater between you and your dad, Dave? Who's the more organized one?
Absolutely me. Not even a compliment.
Dave. She's outed you. Seriously.
And he's
what?
smiling while he's saying that. He's like, yeah, I'm messy. Dave's owning it. Right.
Her room is immaculate. She sometimes says to me, you should probably make your bed.
Ooh, shade, Dylan, I like it. So we're going to turn now to a more serious topic. Woven throughout the book are stories about people in your life, Mrs. Obama, who had been impacted by racial barriers, some of which prevented entire generations of families from achieving their full potential. You mentioned your father, family and friends who struggled to gain access to home ownership, access to well-paying jobs, and even had to work constantly to fit in at prestigious schools. We have a photo here of your father at work at the water filtration plant, where he worked for so many years without ever missing a day, which was incredible. Macy, when you're thinking about race, was there a moment in the book that stood out for you?
Yes, and I think I identify with this because I'm the only Black girl in my grade. And my question for Mrs. Obama is, when the school guidance counselor told you that you weren't Princeton material, did you think it was because of your race?
Yes, I think it had something to do with that, because a college counselor is just overworked. They're dealing with hundreds of students, and they're not just dealing with academic help, but they're also helping on the social side. So we're asking our our high school counselors to do too much. So what I think happened to me, now that I look back, is that that was probably a busy counselor, and she didn't have time to get to know me. So she made a set of assumptions based on what she saw or thought she saw. And she saw a young Black girl. She must not have looked at my grades because my grades were good. She might have been in a rush. She didn't know my background. She didn't know who I was. So I think she made a set of assumptions about, oh, you want to go to Princeton? Princeton? No, you shouldn't go there. And I do think that whether she knew it or not, that there were some race-based assumptions made. And that's the kind of stuff that we have to prepare our kids for. There are people out there and adults out there who have lived a narrow life, or they're too busy to be conscientious about it, or they're uneducated. They don't know a broad swath of people. They don't know the opportunities that Black or brown people have access to, and they make assumptions, and those assumptions stick, right? I mean, I've lived a wonderful life, right? And I've done many, many things, but that experience with that college counselor and the words that she said to me, the doubt that she showed to me, stuck with me. And I was lucky to be the kind of student that my response to negative energy or to doubters was just say to myself, I'll show you, right? I was that kid. And I had built up that resilience. And I fortunately had a home of people and other influences, including my Aunt Robbie and other people who always told me how smart I was, that there was nothing that that one woman could say to me. But what if I hadn't been that kid, right? What if I was the exact same kid with the exact same grades, but didn't have the same kind of resilience? And I heard that from my counselor, and I thought, instead of thinking I'll show you, I thought, oh, wow, she must be right. You know, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I can't do that. And without saying anything, she would have sent me off into a direction that was beneath me, right? And that's the thing that we have to remember as adults in this world, no matter what our backgrounds are or what, race we are, what our experiences are, that the words we say to kids matter, that we can build them up or we can tear them down mercilessly. So it is incumbent upon all of us as adults to model positivity for all of our kids, because you're our future. And I want you all believing that you can do anything you put your mind to. I want you all the kids who are, within the sound of my voice, to think that they have what it takes to do whatever they want in life. Because guess what? You all believing that helps me. You guys are going to be the ones leading the country when I'm old and done. And I want you to be confident, powerful young leaders, regardless of your background. But that's our job as adults, to be smart enough and to be to be secure enough in ourselves so that when we engage with young people, we feed them with positive energy and we don't bring our stuff into their lives and mess with their heads.
Amira, you had a question on the same note about, where do you find the courage to try something new?
So my question for Mrs. Obama was, how difficult was it to maintain your grades while overcoming adversity on campus as a minority?
For me, it wasn't difficult because I came from a family structure, from parents who told me not to let somebody else's low expectations of me define me, right? And those messages were put in my head at 3 years old, at 4 years old, at 5 years old. That's part of that resilience that we talk about, the messages that knock away those messages of self-doubt. I went to Princeton knowing that I can do this, right? And I don't care what these other people say or what they think. As I said, I was the kid who would say, I'll show you who belongs and who doesn't. And here's the other thing that you will learn as you keep pushing yourself and trying new things and gaining access to tables that people told you that you didn't belong in. Well, you will get to those tables and you'll find out that there's nothing that special here. These kids, the kids at Princeton were no smarter. Maybe some had some advantages because their prep schools had prepared them better, but I was smart enough and strong enough to make up the difference. And that's what I want you young people to know is that I say this all the time. I have been at every powerful table that there is. I've seen it. I've been to palaces. I've sat in rooms with G20 leaders. I have met diplomats. I have met CEOs. I have talked to other first ladies. I have been in the nonprofit community. I've worked in corporate America. I have seen all the tables there are. And while there's some many brilliant people there, right, who work hard and show up, there are a lot of people who got there because who their parents were, how much money they had. They didn't get there because they knew any more than me, that they were any smarter, worked any harder, right? And that knowledge, as I continued to progress, just made me more confident to use my voice, to speak up, to not listen to somebody who tried to shut me down, right? And I want to let you guys in on that secret now at this age. You don't have to wait until you get to college to realize that you can do it. It's not that hard. If you are ready to work and ready to ask for help and you're ready to try and you're okay with failing and getting up again, there is nothing you can't do. That is the process of life.
Has anyone here in our group experienced being the only or being the first that would want to share what that felt like a little bit?
Yes. So, Mrs. Obama, the children, along with the adults, all have their breaking points at some time.
Mm-hmm.
And for lack of a better term, just don't want to be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us some tips on staying high when they go low? Because I have to admit, Mrs. Obama, sometimes I meet them in the middle. So I need some help with that.
I hear you. There are times when I'm going low in my head, right? It's like, ooh, if I could only, right? But here's a couple of tips, things that keep me going. First of all, I think about the long-term outcome, and I get this from my husband who, as president and in his life, is able to push through some of the small petty stuff in the short term because he's thinking about the longer term view. He sees the answer down there and he knows that, going low, oftentimes you're just reacting to your first base instinct, right? The anger, the hurt, the immediate thing, and the going low, that's you responding in that moment. As you get older and you get more practice, you realize, it's sort of the count to 10 thing, because how you feel in that immediate moment is really different from how you feel and how you can think rationally about the long term. So going high to me is thinking, what is the ultimate purpose here? And it's not for me to just vent, right? Me venting, that's a personal thing, right? If I'm trying to get to an answer, I have to move beyond venting and move to a solution and approach that's actually going to move the needle on whatever the issue is. The second thing to do is to have a community of support that you can vent to, right? I mean, going high doesn't mean you suffocate the emotion. It just means you find a place where you can productively let it out.
That is such a great piece of advice. I think we need to put that on a t-shirt. Go low in the mind and go high in the mouth, right? That I'm going to do. I think we all could use a little practice at that, right? Isabella, who's the person you turn to in your life when you need to have that after all my children conversation and to vent? Who do you go to?
To vent, I usually go to my mom because she's always there to listen and help me out whenever I'm stuck on something.
That's awesome. We're going to wrap up with one final question. And I think this was something that was so lovely as we were reading the book. Mrs. Obama, you talked about how you were this very logical, practical person, always planning, always calculating your wins and checking boxes and, working your way to the next milestone. But then along the way in your story, you met some characters who were more free-spirited, who weren't always so logical and organized, who maybe took different paths. I was wondering if you could share with us just, for the young people and for the parents, why it's important to, detract from the practical ways once in a while and think about, just letting things work themselves out on their own.
I think it was Dave, one of the parents said, the only thing you really have control over is your actions, the things you do in life. And yes, you can control your strategy. You can control how much work you put into something. You can control your reaction to things. But even with all of that control, life happens. Things come up, and sometimes they're hard. Because one of the flexible people in my life that I learned from, one of the people who didn't plan as much, was my best friend and roommate from college, Suzanne, who unfortunately died of cancer at a very young age. That was the first time I'd experienced anybody that young, that was that close to me, dying so suddenly, because until then, right, you thought death was something that happened to grandparents and great grandparents, or a tragedy struck. So it hit me that, that wasn't part of her plan, right? And things happen. People lose jobs, pandemics happen. That is what life is about. There are ups and there are downs. And the best way to prepare for that is to have a plan, but be open to the possibilities of being flexible. Becoming First Lady, I could have approached that one of two ways. I could have stiffened and bristled against the changes that were inevitable, right? Having security, not being able to walk outside. My life is forever changed because of it. And there are great things about it, but there are things that I can never do. I can't just go to Trader Joe's and pick up a loaf of bread. I can't even open the window of my car because they are armored and secured, and I would put other people at risk. So I could have bristled and stiffened, or what you do in a trust fall that keeps you safe is that you relax, and sometimes you just let yourself fall and you allow other people to help you up. But if you stiffen, that's when you get hurt. That's when something goes wrong. And that's sort of a metaphor for life. Sometimes you have to just breathe in and let yourself go into the process that is life. But that doesn't mean you don't prepare. That doesn't mean you don't have a plan. That doesn't mean you don't set goals. And that doesn't mean that you don't work hard. You control the things that you can control, and you prepare for the inevitable, which is uncertainty. And then you can embrace life with joy.
Well, I could sit and listen to you talk all day because you're speaking my language. I also just want to let you know I'm in Trader Joe's all the time. So if you ever need some bread, chances are I'm in line, right? I'm happy to pick you up. I know all the best Trader Joe's finds. So this has been a really amazing experience for all of us, something that I'm sure we will all tell our kids and our grandchildren about one day. Am I right, folks who are with us, families? Has this just been so incredible? So a huge thank you to Mrs. Obama for sharing your time with us tonight. And thank you so much to all of the young people and your parents for having this conversation with us.
Michaela, can I say one thing before we go to all the young people? I just want to say it in front of their parents. You all were engaged, articulate, thoughtful. And if you can come on a Zoom call and engage in this way at this level with the former First Lady of the United States, you can do anything. And kudos to the parents for being open and for not helicoptering and allowing them to fail and try and continue to boost them up. That's what we want. You know, we want young people like the young people who are in this conversation. And that's what gives me hope. When I talk to these young people, I know that these will be the next leaders. And if they come into whatever they do with this kind of heart and purpose and poise, that we're going to be fine. So congratulations to all of you and to all the kids. I'm very proud of you, and it's been an honor.
Well, the honor is all ours. Thank you. We have all been very composed and professional. Now let's all let off some steam with a big cheer for the Young Readers edition of Becoming and the fact that we all just did a book talk with Mrs. Michelle Obama.